Lawyers are taking advantage of the confusion around website accessibility laws to file lawsuit after lawsuit against so many businesses for potential violations of the Americans with Disabilities Act. Now the question is your business next, and what can you do about it? Welcome to my channel. I'm Amy Nestheim. I'm a lawyer for creative entrepreneurs and the founder of Artful Contracts. In this video, we're going to be talking about 6 steps that you can take to make your website more accessible, even if you don't know anything about coding or website building at all. Before we get started, go ahead and hit the subscribe button so you can be notified of new videos that I release, so you can be on the right side of the law when it comes to your business. Now, if you're not a coder, if you don't know anything about how to build websites on the back end, you might think that you can't do anything about the accessibility of your website. And when I say accessibility, I mean the basic idea that everyone should be able to access web pages regardless of what disabilities they might have, or if they need to use assistive technology like a screen reader. So you might think, well, I can't help a screen reader because I don't know anything about coding, I don't know anything about how screen readers interact with my website. But that is not true. There are some things that you can do even if you don't know anything about coding. So in this video, we're gonna go through 6 things that you can do. To start off with, the first step that you can take that is super easy is just research your website builder or your theme to make sure that it was designed, that the person who coded it was thinking about accessibility. And you can find this out just by Googling it, doing a little research. There are themes on WordPress and on Shopify, on all the different website builder sites that were designed to interact well with screen readers and other assistive technology, and also to just present themselves in a way, to be designed in a way that is more accessible. So the first thing that you can do is just do a little bit of research. It'll be a lot easier to make sure your website is accessible if it's built that way from the ground up, from the very beginning. The next thing that you can do is just make sure that you use appropriate headings on all of your pages. So this includes having unique page names for every page, so don't just name it page 1, page 2. Have a page name that actually describes what the page is about. And then also using appropriate headings when inside of a page. So for example, if you're writing a blog post, you want to make sure that you appropriately label each of your headings and make sure they're all nested properly. So that means make sure, first of all, you only have one H1 heading per page so that the screen reader can tell that is the main title of the page. And then after that, make sure that you keep your headings in order. So you go H2, H3, H4. You don't skip around H2, H4, H3, H6. You want to keep them all in order. Make sure that it's easy to tell basically the levels of outlining within your page. The other thing that's important to note with headings is don't just put headings inside of graphics. So a screen reader won't be able to tell that an image is actually a heading of a page. Even if you put the alt text in there, it's a confusing thing. Unless you're looking at it visually with your eyes, there's no way for the technology to tell that it's a heading. So make sure that if you really have to have a beautiful designed heading with inside of an image, make sure you also have the heading labeled as an H1 or whatever level of heading it is within the text of your page. So that's the first step that you can take. Make sure that all of your headings are used appropriately throughout your website. The next step is to make sure that your site is easy to navigate and control. And this might sound like something that you have to do with coding, but it's really not. If you just need to make sure that your navigation is clear and that you can get through all your pages in a logical order. So like I said before, make sure that each page has a unique name and make sure that it also identifies that page clearly. So this means don't use any cutesy names like love notes when you really mean testimonials. Make sure that it's very straightforward what each page is for, and especially in the navigation. Like if you have a menu at the top of your page or the bottom, make sure that all of the names for the pages in the navigation match the name of the page that it goes to, and that it's also clear what it is from the name of that link. You also want to make sure that you use consistent naming conventions throughout your website. So if there is a link that uses a certain word, you want to make sure that that same word linked on another page has the same function. It can also be really helpful to use skip to content or skip navigation links within your site. So sometimes you'll see on a blog post, especially the cooking ones, where they have a skip to recipe button. That's super helpful. And that helps because sometimes people need to navigate through the site using only the keyboard, the tab button and the arrow keys. So if you have a skip to content or skip navigation link, they can click that and they don't have to hit tab a million times to get through the menu options. And you should also just test out your site to see if it's able to be used only by the keyboard. Just like go through it with using only the tab, the arrows, and the enter button and see if it works. And if it doesn't, fiddle with the design a little bit to make sure that you can do that. We are now halfway through this list, so if you're enjoying this so far, go ahead and hit the subscribe button and the little bell to make sure that you're notified the next time I release a video with helpful tips on running your business legally. And if you have any questions about making your website accessible, go ahead and drop them in the comments and I'll make sure to answer. So now that that's said, let's get back to our list. The next step in making your website is accessible is to make sure that it's easy to see and understand visually in the way that it's presented and the way that it's designed. The big thing here is just make sure that there is enough contrast between any visual elements that you're using. So if you have text that's a light gray on a white background, that might not have enough contrast to be able to be seen very well. And same with colors that people who are colorblind might have trouble with, like red text on a green background is not distinguishable. So just make sure there's sufficient contrast in between any colors that you're using next to each other to make it able to be read. And there are contrast checkers available. If you just Google it, you'll find a bunch of them, and you can put in the hex codes for the colors that you're using. It'll give you a contrast score, so you can tell if there is enough contrast between the two colors. Another way to make sure your site is easy to understand is to use descriptive links instead of just using words like click here or learn more and putting the link on those words. Make sure that the words that you're linking describe the destination of the link. So if you are having people download a free guide, you want to link the entire sentence, download the free guide, and don't just link the word download, so that anyone who has a screen device, an assistive device, or a screen reader, the device will read to them the entire sentence so they know what that link is for, and so they won't just say learn more about what. So that's helpful to make sure that people are clear on the destination of where that link is taking them, and it'll also help your conversions. And finally, on making your site easy to see, make sure that you can zoom in on text, and that if you do zoom in using the browser functions, that the design of your site or the functionality of your site doesn't break. So sometimes with the way that sites are designed, if you make the text bigger, it becomes incomprehensible, the order gets all out of whack, and it changes the flow of the site, and it just makes it hard to understand. So try it out on your site. Just use the zoom functions on your browser and see if you can still read the text, if it still makes sense. And if it doesn't, then you might need to go back and adjust the design of your site and the placement of your different aspects of your site to make sure that you can zoom in and it still flows properly. Next, number 5 on our list is to make sure that you include alternatives for all media. So this one, people talk about it a lot. It just means that you want to make sure that you have alt text on all of your images. And I know it can be annoying going in there and adding in a description of each image, but it's really important not only for accessibility, but also for improving SEO, because if a screen reader can interpret your site, so can Google. And you should also include captions on all of your video and audio recordings, and if possible, include links to full transcripts as well. It's just really helpful to have any media presented in multiple forms of perception. So if it's visual, it should also be audio and vice versa. Finally, make sure that all of the media on your site is easy to control. So this refers specifically to things that play automatically, like sounds or flashes or video even that play automatically when your site loads. Things that play automatically or change automatically can be confusing for people who have difficulty processing information or even difficulty processing visual information, and they can also cause problems for screen readers. You should also avoid media that flashes more than 3 times per second because that can be triggering for someone with epilepsy or another neurological disorder. If you do have any media that plays or changes automatically, you need to make sure that it can be muted or paused easily. So for example, carousel images, pictures that there's one picture and then it slides and there's another picture, those can be very confusing for screen readers because there isn't always a trigger built into the code to let the screen reader know that something on the page has changed. So it thinks there's just one image and that it's a static image. It doesn't know that information is going across in a loop. So the best practice there is to just avoid carousel images entirely if you don't know how to code in that trigger so the screen reader knows, or even check if that trigger is there. And then of course also make sure that it's clear how to pause or mute any videos that play automatically or any sounds that play automatically. So there you have it. That is 6 ways that you can improve the accessibility of your website without knowing anything about coding at all. And if this was helpful for you, go ahead and hit the subscribe button and make sure you hit the little bell to get notified the next time I release a video so that you can be up to date on all of the legal requirements for your business. Thanks for watching.